Okay, I just got done watching the movie 44 Minutes to North Hollywood Shootout. It's kind of inspired by the the Bank of America robbery in L.A. I took some notes on this because this right here is key to something that a lot of preppers need to look at. All right, this is one case in and of itself, and you're talking about a case by a group of trained individuals, not the bank robbers, the police. All right, so I'm going to go over my little notes here on how the film came across and some of the things that I took from it that can be used as a learning experience for everyone involved in preparation. All right, first of all, there's a lot of anti-gun propaganda in this. At the beginning of it, they mention how AK-47 machine guns are meant for war. The AK-47 is not a machine gun. It's actually an assault rifle. The basic design off of it is based off a light machine gun, but it's also designed somewhat after the Nazi storm rifle, which was the original first assault rifle, which was something the Nazis created towards the end of World War II. The second thing in here that was a little bit anti-gun was they talked about how high velocity rounds are meant to penetrate body armor. Right, that's a myth. First of all, for an AK-47, it was made in 1947. Most militaries were not using body armor at that time. In fact, I don't think hardly any were. So you kind of see where they're getting a little bit off here. Now, the beyond the anti-gun stuff, because there's a whole little scene at the end where they were getting the guns from the gun store, and one of the cops is like, well, I can't believe they let people buy these because, well, it's a good thing they do let people buy these because otherwise people wouldn't have the cops wouldn't have been able to go to the gun store, get a, I think it was a Remington 700, might have been a Winchester 700, I forget which, that was used as, the best sniper rifle in the business, and AR-15s, if normal citizens couldn't get them, the police wouldn't be able to get there because the SWAT team was not there all the time. Which is my point 3. Point 2 is it mentions that no criminal had used assault weapons before, and that's relatively true, but that's also a lie. The Thompson submachine gun was used by the Al Capone era gangsters. Clyde of Bonnie and Clyde fame was actually notorious for using a .30 caliber light machine gun he stole from a National Guard armory. And he had military training to use that weapon, so that was his preferred weapon when robbing banks or armored cars or whatever. Number 3, they go in there trying to say that, trying to make a big deal on the SWAT stuff, and you could tell this was propaganda by the liberals in California, because a lot of the liberal movement has kind of rubbed elbows with the left wing groups like the socialist and the communist. SWAT teams and actually the idea of war on crime began being created back in the 1960s, partly out of the rise and threat of paramilitary tactics used by criminals, left-wing militants, and left-wing terrorists trying to push that communist agenda and create a violent overthrow of the U.S. government. Sorry for smoking. Now, that being said, when you look at the fact that our history from the 60s and 70s has been militarism and violence and criminals using paramilitary tactics, I don't see a problem with things like SWAT teams. I don't see a thing with a paramilitary force to deal with them. But it becomes an issue that you need to understand where this came from. A lot of this came from the far left, from the extremists, the left-wing terrorists like the Weather Underground, who rubbed elbows with the Black Panthers, the original Black Panthers, which is why nowadays you have a split between the two, where you have some people who follow the original Black Panther ideas of equality and self-defense against government intrusion, and then you have the other side, which is that left-wing group that wants to cause a violent overthrow in America and gets into a lot of pseudo-religious blame the white guy type of stuff. And that left-wing side tends to push the idea of victimization, and they teach paramilitary tactics to criminals. This is where my whole series on prison-based martial arts comes into effect, that I've done on YouTube. Now, point 4, the SWAT team couldn't actually reach their own people at the shootout due to by the bank robbers, due to traffic and everything else. So, even when the cops needed cops to support them, and it wasn't for lack of trying, they couldn't get there on time. Now, what's that a lesson for us in preparation and just people in general? You can't depend on the police to protect you, to get there in time to protect you. You have to take steps to protect yourself. And in fact, the cops at a certain point actually went to a gun store and commandeered a bunch of assault weapons, which is where my comment came from about the anti-gun propaganda, was that, they had to get AR-15s and basically a sniper rifle, a modified version of a deer hunting rifle, to go and confront the criminals. Now, there was certain individual cases in that whole incident, and for the most part of it, I actually believe the police force did their job, and I actually have to give them props. I'm usually critical of the police, but I have to give them props. Now, how does this relate to prepping? Well, for one, defense equals firepower. For all you people who say that as a prepper, you don't need an assault weapon, bullshit. If the criminals have them, you need them. In fact, defense equals initiative. You need to have a plan. You need to prepare based on that plan, and you need to adapt to the situation. Adapt your plan to the situation. A tentative plan works out great, so you can adapt it as situations come up. Now, there's an interesting thing about this. Because of this incident, even officers who aren't tactically trained, who don't have that SWAT team tactical paramilitary training, now carry AR-15s. This way, if they ever, encounter a situation like this, they're not just stuck with pistols trying to shoot people. And this comes up to a very interesting point, that if the police are now carrying assault weapons, and the police feel the need to carry assault weapons, and they feel the need that with their training and body armor, and they have support elements and radios and other guys out there to defend themselves, you as an individual in your home need something to defend yourself. This is the best argument for civilians owning assault weapons. You can't depend on the police to get there. Firepower equals defense. If somebody comes at you with a screwdriver, you have a gun, you win. If somebody comes at you with a knife, you have a gun, you win. If somebody comes at you with a machete, you have a gun, you win. If somebody comes at you with a gun and you have a bigger gun, and you're willing to use it, you win. This is why, and you need to also consider this, when you're looking at third world countries where they have a lot of gun control, the only people who actually have control in that environment are criminals and the government. The civilians usually don't. They're just stuck in the middle. This is why you have groups like FARC, and other paramilitary organizations in countries who are kidnapping people and ransoming them for millions of dollars, who are attacking government installations, stealing their guns and equipment, and then using it. This is why you have the narco-terrorists in Mexico who have all the firepower, because for the most part, there's a lot of gun restrictions in Mexico that prevent the civilian population from owning firearms. And it gets even worse because at the same time you have that same criminal element that's making all this money from the drug trade, that's arming and training their own personal army. So, especially people who live on the western coast, the south, around Louisiana and Texas, and out that way where you have to worry about those drug cartels and those stuff coming up from Mexico, then, especially you guys need some sort of assault weapon, preferably some training to back it up to use it. This is an interesting argument for the whole anti-gun thing. I got a call and I'm going to end this video.